Do you remember when the first Darktide teaser trailer dropped in the year 2020? It was July 23rd. I remember watching it for the first time and I was just wowed. We were finally going to get a 40K game that was not a strategy game, and it wasn't some trash mobile game, but it was a game that was co-op and was finally going to represent the true aspects of 40K. And that game was going to show non-40K fans how great the 40K universe was. For those of you who had followed the Darktide journey, understand that there had been delays from 2021 that delayed the game to 2022 of spring, which we had told ourselves any delays for a game just means that the devs have a longer time to work on the game and make the game better. Spring 2022 has rolled around and we're depicted with another trailer from Fatshark showing that Darktide will be delayed again. In this case, it's going to be delayed till September 13th of 2022, which is fine. We tell ourselves that if the devs have more time to work on the game and they develop it further, there's going to be more content, the game's going to be better, and it's going to be released as a finished product. Now it's summer, July 28th, 2022, and we see another announcement regarding the development delay of Darktide itself. In this case, Darktide will now fully release on November 30th of this year. Several months have passed and now it's October. A closed beta has started and people are signing up to try the game for the very first time. By this time, the closed beta was fully out, people were playing it, and I would say the overall reception was pretty good. It peaked to 45,000 players at some point halfway through the closed beta, but ultimately people liked the game and they wanted more. The closed beta had ended and there were already posts flooding in on the Darktide subreddit discussing about lack of quality of life and UI features, the hub being lackluster and empty, characters feeling empty, general gameplay issues, classes and weapons, the lack of them, and the maps being very boring, for example. Overall, after the closed beta had ended, people started to see the cracks in the foundation that ultimately led to the disaster of Darktide. So by this time, the closed beta had ended and they were starting the pre-order beta from November 17th to November 29th, one day before the game actually releases. At this point, I had made my own community post because, of course, I had joined the Fatshark Darktide creator program. They had all given us referral links and I made my own community post, which to this day I kind of regret doing. But at the end of the day, this pre-order beta was a different iteration of the game itself and people were starting to have problems. So the pre-order beta is in full swing and we see that people are enjoying the game. The core gameplay loop is fun, but people are reporting technical issues, crashes, performance issues. By this time, several community posts as well as statements and comments made by community managers of Fatshark have really irked people the wrong way here. I'm going to go over them and we're going to discuss about why some of these community posts and statements really hurt the game in the long run here. So if we take a couple steps back, on October 14th, they released a community post discussing that there will be 70 weapons at launch, as well as 4 classes with no subclasses. People had expectations from Vermintide 2 that eventually they will add more subclasses, a part of the base game, that we'd reach that 15 subclass count that Vermintide 2 have. But this first post that they make where they say, we haven't fully decided if we will still charge for new and upcoming classes. This really was the wrong thing to say. If you want to build goodwill with your customers, this should have been included with the game. Sure, maybe not 15 subclasses, maybe 12 with some expectations, but you're talking about here to potential customers that are buying the game up front and you're talking about how you might monetize them further in the future. This doesn't sound good to people. Another point of contention here is that the confirmation of the fact that there will be no subclasses at launch and that there will be only 4 classes available at launch here. As you can see here in front of you, during the pre-order beta, there was a leak of the weapons list. As previously stated, that they said that there will be 70 plus weapons. You can see in front of you the first row, first weapon. That's, I believe, is some kind of a sniper, not in the game. You see the second row, third weapon, melt-a-gun. That's also not in the game. There's a two-handed force sword weapon, also not in the game. You see at the bottom second row there. And there's also 2 other weapons that weren't at release, but they added later on. Also another post just confirming that the weapons were not finished, not all of them at least here. Another unfortunate aspect about this game is that they had an attachment system. There's a news article out there somewhere, maybe someone else can find it, I haven't been able to find it, where they talk about that you can actually add and remove attachments to your weapon. The image that you see in front of you is a Cantrell las gun with iron sights. In the base game right now, it has a scope like a red dot sight, but later on when asked about it, we get some snarky comments from a community manager talking about how Darktide isn't Call of Duty. And I'm going to be really honest here, this type of comment's not needed. Another aspect that has led to Darktide's failure is the simple fact that there's been no crafting at full launch here. That's right, you heard right. There's no crafting in a full game. As you see here, the developers talk about that it's going to come at a later date, which is very unfortunate. To me, I know some people will say that Vermintide and Darktide is not supposed to be like a looting, crafting, looter shooter or whatever, but the whole point of the game, for me at least, and I think for many people, is you play the game, you level up, you get loot, right? You grind for gear, you craft stuff, the stuff that you want, so that way you can try to do harder and harder content with the better equipment that you have. And also we get another snarky comment by saying that crafting weapons doesn't really fit into the theme of the setting. My friend, you're literally making a Darktide game, a Tide game. You came from Vermintide, Vermintide 2 to Darktide. How can you tell me now in your third iteration of the game that crafting doesn't belong in your video games? The fact about microtransactions that I really dislike, that are predatory and should never ever be done by gaming companies, when you try to buy a currency pack and it's designed specifically to let a little bit left over when you buy something from the cosmetic shop. So for example, in Darktide, you can buy a currency pack of 2,500 Aquilas, but the cosmetic packs cost 2,400, which means that there's always 100 left over to incentivize you to spend more money in the game because of that sunk cost fallacy. And it doesn't help that we have a dev here telling us that it's too complex to do overnight, which I understand. You can't just make changes overnight, but this should have been in the base game originally. Since you guys have taken the fact to add other currency packs, but you never added the 2,400 one. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't even know how to approach this picture when they literally admit the fact that they forgot to add one of the packs to the store. Nothing infuriates me more when a developer insults my intelligence and that the intelligence of their customers. In this scenario, they talk about the reason why they don't want to add unlimited store pages and they want to add fear of missing out, which is called FOMO, by the way. So that way people are more likely to spend and buy a skin because they don't want to have that fear of missing out that skin because it's going to go out of rotation in the store. They say this because of the simple reason of bad user experience and that they're scared that you're going to get confused because you might have to click scroll several times to go to the page that has the skin that you want to buy. This is not acceptable. This is absolutely not acceptable. We buy a game, I got it for free because I'm a part of the content creator program, but everyone else either spent $40 or $70 on the Imperial Edition. The least you could do is not insult their intelligence. For advertising yourself as a live service game where many of the aspects are continually updated and that there are many paid cosmetic skins, Fatshark has very poor quality control. Here's an example of the Imperial Edition Sucker skin. On the left is what we got, on the right was what we promised. People literally spent $70 on the Imperial Edition and they don't even get what they were promised. Now it's been at least a whole 2 months that this game has been out, almost 2 months, and we still haven't heard anything about this specific problem. There are many cosmetic issues with this game. Problem with the skins themselves, clipping, missing parts, these cosmetics do not line up together properly. I'm not going to cover them all in this video because there's so many actually. If you just go to the subreddit of Darktide, you'll actually see, if you just search up cosmetics, you'll see that there are a plethora of issues here. But one issue I do want to talk about, there's two more actually. One is that this picture here is the promotional art of Darktide, but the helmet for the veteran, the armor for the zealot, and the hammer skin, which you don't see in this picture, as well as the armor for the Ogren, are all promotional art. It's all modeled in the game. You see other NPCs walking around with them, but we still can't have access to them. Why? I don't know. So the last cosmetic issue that I have a gripe with, as there are many, about a month ago, there was a cosmetic leak that happened that they did, I would say, try to silence, especially in the subreddit. You can see here for yourself the amount of cosmetics that are available currently that are hidden away, that have yet to release, that were pre-made while this game is in this absolute mess that it's currently in. Now, I also understand that the art team is different from the development team, but someone made a good point. That art team could be doing other things like, for example, making more pennant skins, more NPC art, more weapon skins. Right now, the cosmetic skins for weapons is just different, like red or blue. If you play Darktide, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Another contentious part that I have with the game is the pennant system. Penances are nothing more than just challenges. I like challenges in video games, but they have to be done right in the sense that they're not frustrating, they're easily obtainable, and they make sense, right? The penances in Darktide are specifically designed to be difficult, antisocial, anti-team, and anti-fun to drive you insane into buying the cosmetic packs instead of obtaining the free ones. I would recommend to take a look and read through these posts, pause the video and read through them. There are dozens, hundreds of these types of posts where people are complaining about the penances that you can find in the subreddit. So same thing with the penances here. Pause the video, read through these pictures. One other aspect that's causing Darktide to crash and burn is literally crashes. People still to this day, 2 months after launch and even before the launch, are continually crashing in their games mid-match, end of match, not getting rewards, and the problem still isn't fixed. I know one fix is that you can change your worker threads, but you're lucky if that works for you or not. It's still unfortunate that 2 months later we still don't have a fix for people who are crashing. They literally paid for a game that they can't play. And before anyone says that they have never experienced a crash, just because you don't crash doesn't mean other people don't. Game design in Darktide was designed maliciously to not respect your time as a consumer and as a customer. The pictures that are shown in front of you here, do pause the video and take a look at them, just showcases the game design that was made to artificially inflate your playtime as well as to frustrate you into buying more skins. So for example, the hub has been made this giant area, multiplayer area, so that way you can look at each other's skins. That's why it's third person, so you can look at your own cool skin that you bought, or if you saw someone else with this cool skin, you see them in the hub and you're like, I want that skin. It's also been designed so that way when you go to the shop that's refreshing every hour, that you run past the microtransaction shop, which is shoving it in your face at every opportunity you log into the game, so that there's a more likelihood of you buying the game. Like I said, this game has been designed to siphon money out of you. It is communication, and you can see here before yourself, the Xbox variant of Darktide was supposed to come out on the 30th of November, the same time as PC, and it's been well over 2 months, and we have not gotten a single piece of news regarding the Xbox release. There are people on Xbox who want to play this game, who have been patiently waiting, and they've been ignored all this time. It takes 2 minutes to give a deadline. And if you can't give a deadline, say, hey, we understand and appreciate your passion. We're working towards getting an Xbox variant out there. It's still in the works. You're just going to have to wait a little bit longer. It's simple. I know you're not going to make people happy, but it's better than nothing. So continuing on the communication aspect of this video, recently Fatshark has hired a new community person or community agent. I forgot the term. This person's called Catfish, and essentially a lot of people have speculated that they've been hired to be the sacrificial lamb. I've seen this happen before in video game companies where they drop the bomb on releasing a game, hire a new person. That new person takes all the heat and the frustration of the players, which is unfortunate. But moving on from this, the biggest problem here with this is that we've been continually waiting for a community update that will cover all the aspects of every problem that's been identified by players, every issue that's been risen by players, criticism and the feedback provided by players. I understand Fatshark employees are human and that they need rest and they deserve to have Christmas off, but no one forced you to release the game at the start of December and then take a 2-week break and then come back and continually tell us next week for a community update. And to continue the discussion about communication, I'm going to show a bunch of memes that have been created on the subreddit. It's going to showcase how players are feeling currently with the lack of communication. Because like I said before, when you don't communicate with the community, it doesn't help you. I know you want to stay tight-lipped. I know you want to give the right answer, but in the emptiness of the void that you create, people speculate and people assume things and they'll jump to conclusions and they'll leave and they'll stop playing the game and they'll move on. They'll buy a different game. So as you can see before you, Darktide has reached mostly negatives in its recent reviews, but this is essentially the culmination of actions that Fatshark has taken and the missteps that they've done in regards to handling the situation and nosediving this game into the ground. It's unfortunate really because Darktide could have been that golden goose egg for Games Workshop and in terms of attracting non-40K fans. Because like I said with my Darktide review, the only two ways to consume 40K media previously was book books and plastic toys. Now they've been branching out to TV shows with like Henry Cavill that you saw there, as well as animations that have come out with Warhammer Plus. The final bastion, of course, is video games. For the last 10 years, all we've gotten is more turn-based games, more strategy games, trashy mobile games. Don't get me wrong, Inquisitor Martyr was good. The Mechanicus game was good, but I was looking more of like a co-op FPS shooter, looter shooter kind of style game where you can play with your friends and have fun, and this was supposed to be it. But honestly, with the malicious game design that they've taken, the lack of communication, the lack of respect for the customer, the lack of quality support has really showed that this game's not going to succeed. I've reached a point where this next community update, heed my words, is going to make or break this game. Either the game's going to succeed from here on out, or just people are going to forget about it and come back maybe in 2 years. It might be a No Man's Sky, it might not. The majority of games fail and they don't bounce back, and that's a simple fact, which breaks my heart because I'm a huge 40K fan and I want this game to succeed. Hey, just before I sign off here, I hope you enjoyed the video. It's definitely a different style from what I normally do, but I've kind of been branching out with different ideas. I'll link a different video in the description and in the end cards here that, you know, I kind of use a graphic tablet to make. It's kind of the golden rule of gaming that I think if Fatshark had listened to this rule, they would have made a better game at the end of the day. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. Do give it a like, a sub, and a comment. And like I said, I want this game to succeed. I'm not coming from a place of negativity. I criticize the game because I want the game to be better. But yeah, at the end of the day, have yourselves a great day and stay safe out there.